My darling Lean Girls, welcome to the first episode of the Lean Girl Fitcast in 2024. Can you feel the new year energy and motivation pumping through your veins? Well, we're recording this in December, but I feel like the new energy of 2024 is already upon us. And we are so excited to dive into a new topic that I think will be on the top of your mind going into this new year. And that is going to be reinventing yourself in 2024. Who is it that you want to be? How is it that you want to show up differently in 2024? And when I'm asking these questions, the first thing your mind may be going to is things that you feel like are possible for you, based on the labels you've given yourself, based on the experiences that you've had in your life, based on all these things that make up the concept of who we are. And so today we are going to be talking about how to step into reinventing ourselves from a whole nother level, from a new mindset, a fresh mindset, like a clean slate. And it is going to be incredible once we do this, what the possibilities are for us going into the new year. So I'm really excited about this, and I am happy to have my darling husband, Gillan Gork, aka The Mentalist, as part of this podcast. And he always brings his amazing psychology and mindset and motivation tools into the mix. These are the amazing tools that he is sharing with high performers around the world. So we are very lucky to have him bringing these amazing tools to us and applying it to our goals, which is how to be fit, how to lose a bit of fat, and how to live our best lean girl lives.
Yeah.
So that's what, babe, I need that New Year energy, boy. Gillan's got December energy sitting on this couch. Can we hear your New Year energy, please?
Can I get a... I'm all for 2024. But here's the thing. You mentioned that we're filming it in December.
Yes.
And 2024 is an idea. Like, the future is always just an idea. I'm bringing today's energy.
Okay.
Now. This is where I am. This is the only energy that counts because it's the only thing that's real.
Okay. Well, is it high? Is it up there? Are you bringing it for the girls? Because that's what matters to me.
You're the only girl I bring my energy for.
Okay, that's fine. I will bring the energy for you girls. Okay, so reinventing ourselves in 2024. I'm going to put you on the spot, okay? I want to know just one thing, one way.
Her finger is out. For those of you listening and not watching, she has the finger waving in the air.
That you want to reinvent yourself in a nutshell.
Wow, this was not part of our show prep.
It wasn't, but I just want to know. I mean, I'm curious.
How do I want to reinvent myself?
He doesn't want to be...
There's so many ways to answer that, because I suppose probably the most meaningful way is to say, how do I want to be different? Because I think how we are affects what we do. So I want to reinvent myself to have a little bit more self-compassion. Because I know that however I emerge in 2024 is going to be a factor, so many different things that come together that will influence how I emerge. And I know I'm not always going to get it perfect. So I would like to be the first to have a little bit of compassion for myself, to allow myself not to get stuck just because maybe I didn't emerge in the way that I would like to be. You know?
Yes. Yeah. I think so many people struggle with that, especially going into the new year. We expect perfection. Like 1st of January hits and perfection is now about to unfold, and we know that never goes according to plan. So having self-compassion just helps you to recover so much quicker.
Well, we think that we have to be perfect, and I'll speak for myself. I grew up thinking I had to be perfect because I had built an identity. You were talking about labels earlier, and that's the nature of this talk. I had certain labels about myself, which was essentially saying to myself, I'm worthy, I'm good enough, because this is the kind of person who I am. And part of that was, part of having an identity is we then feel that we want to protect and validate it. And perfection was one of the ways that I thought, well, if I'm perfect, then no one can criticize me. I can't even criticize myself. And that will make me feel more certain about the kind of person who I am, that whatever kind of person I am is good enough. So
Yes.
I had no leeway with myself, and I would berate myself. But it's all just bullshit, isn't it?
Plain and simple.
Yeah.
So today we really want to talk about how we go about reinventing ourselves, but from a fresh slate. So as I mentioned in the intro, I've definitely experienced this in life where there have been certain things that I believed about myself. And so when I was setting goals or when I was thinking about who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do, it was always based off of this concept that I had, right? And that comes from childhood, from things that people have told you, whether that was your teacher, whether it was your mom, whether it was your auntie, whoever. And so slowly over time, this becomes our base. And so when we think about what we want to do, it's kind of always like one step, but from there. You never think of something that's completely outside of what you're comfortable with. And so I wanted to actually share one of my personal stories about this. And it may shock you girls. Well, it may not shock you, but I actually, when I was younger, was potentially the least sporty, physical child like you would ever come across. The only sport that I played was tennis, and I would only play doubles. And that was because I could just shout like yours, and then the other person would get the ball. So
Now I know why you keep shouting that when we play paddle together. It makes more sense.
needless to say, I didn't have very excited partners. Well, they weren't very excited to play with me. And I think from a young age, I was also quite overweight. And so that didn't help with the whole physical activity. I don't think I was the most mobile person. And then I think it was sort of just labeled that I wasn't a sporty person. I didn't have ball skills. And to be honest, I never really tried. I think that there may have been a couple of occasions where maybe I wasn't the most offhand, naturally gifted sportswoman. And then I kind of just had this idea, cool, that's not for me. I mean, I wish I could say I was very academic, but I definitely didn't skew that way either. And I think where this kind of changed, and so I grew up never trying. Like if there was a sporting event or someone was like, let's go and do something physical, I would avoid it like the plague. Even at sports days, like I was always like trying to think of some smart reason as to why I didn't have to be involved. And even going into around my mid-20s, like I hated getting up. I hated moving. If I could drive, I would drive. I would never walk. And it wasn't until probably my mid-20s. And I think I was trying to think back of the moment where I think something changed. And my sister used to really enjoy running. And so I had just come to Joburg after living in America, and she was like, I must come to a workout class with her. And I think at the time it was like Sweat 1000. That was all the rage. And so I went to a Sweat 1000 class with her very begrudgingly. Like I don't know why I ever agreed to it because it was not my thing. And I remember after doing the class, I was like, damn, like that was actually fun. Babe, you know, I'm there for a good tune. So it had like the pumping music. Like, I mean, I was dying. I definitely couldn't keep up with most of the people. But that feeling of moving, I was like, wow, like this is so, it feels amazing. And I wasn't too terrible at it either. And fast forward now, I still sometimes watch myself either recording live videos for TNT or for Instagram. And I actually think if 20-year-old me would be seeing this, that I am now teaching people how to exercise.
For those listening and not sure what she means by TNT, that's her exercise program. And Angie will literally set up and do 2, sometimes 3, back-to-back high intensity, like HIIT workouts that she's recording for all the ladies in her program. By the way, you said that was around your mid-20s. I just want to note that you and I met when you were 23.
Yes.
And so I just feel like I need a medal for putting up with you until you had this turn.
Baby love. It was true love because I was a little bit I wasn't the fittest chick, and you still loved me. So
of course.
So anyway, so I look now back and laugh, and I think, how could that be the same girl that would like be totally miserable if I had to walk like a couple of blocks? And now it's something that I do every day. You know, I'm so consistent because I just love it in every single way, what it does for me. And so if I was so attached to that idea that I would never be fit, that I wasn't into fitness, I wasn't good at sport, and let's add paddle into the mix. That was also a great example of me thinking, hey, I'm actually not sporty at all, and I'm definitely not the best paddle player, but just actually allowing myself to not be good and have fun with it has actually helped me to improve my paddle skills. So, when talking about reinventing ourselves, I know when we were prepping for this episode, you have shared this amazing concept with me about selfing and how it is just a new way to think about ourselves not being this set, solid concept. But I'm not going to try and explain it. I think that I would love for you to explain to the girls what this means.
Right. I totally relate to your story, by the way. I was the kid at PE in school who would always forget,
Yes.
quote unquote.
No, I had my period. I had my period every time.
Our punishment was to pick up weeds, to pull up weed, or to do like just the most random chores, picking up leaves and stuff like that. So let's talk about selfing, because yes, we think to ourselves, oh, well, maybe I'm just a certain type of person. Or we think to ourselves, maybe through a little bit of effort or maybe through some strike of luck, I might change a little bit. But actually, it's more radical than that. So I really want to share this idea because I certainly, before understanding this, I don't think that we understand just how many opportunities we have to emerge with a totally new slate. We think that it's exclusive to New Year's, and that's where we probably feel it most. But actually, it's in every single moment. And I want to share something that's not just philosophical, but you could even say it's scientific.
Yeah.
As you know, I'm just kind of a huge science nerd. So
Snap.
So here's basically where it starts. As with many of the habits and ways that we think, it begins when we're children. We're taught to live in the world of concepts. And so, for example, we're shown a picture book, and we're shown that there's a picture of a tree, and we learn that that's a tree. And we're shown a picture of a candle and a flame, and we learn that's a candle, that's a flame. So that when we are actually shown a real candle and flame in front of us, and we say, that is a candle, that is a flame, we're told, oh, well done, that's very good, you're very, very smart, right? And so that's kind of where it stops. But the truth is that all the things which are just concepts that we learn as children, that is not really the truth of what everything is. Now, in a moment, I'm talking about trees and candles and flames, but in a moment I'm going to talk about ourselves, right? But let's just talk about a flame, because I think that this is a great example, where if you look at a flame, we may learn to say that is a flame, as if it's a noun, as if it's a thing. But what's closer to reality, what's closer to the truth, is that is more of a happening than a thing. There is a movement of particles. There's a movement of energy. The flame is a pattern of energy that's changing in every single moment. A flame actually is more of a process.
Mm-hmm. It's a burning.
And so it's more accurate to say that it is flaming, as if it's a verb, as if it's a happening.
Right.
It's flaming instead of saying it's a flame.
Right.
So yes, to say it's a flame can be helpful in conversation, but in terms of what it really is, flaming is more accurate. The same can be said about everything. Even trees are a process, right? Now, let's look at ourselves.
Yeah.
We think that we are a thing as well. We have a concept about ourselves. And that concept starts to get layers when we put labels on that. And we have certain beliefs and assumptions that have been conditioned into us through many different ways since we're children. But there's this huge misconception, this felt sense that we are a self in the same way that a flame is a flame. But what's closer to reality is that we too are a process. Our body is a process. You're eating in the morning, that food is coming, you've got stuff coming in from the outside in, food and water. There's chemical reactions. You're going to feel differently. You're going to emerge in this moment if you ate, say, an energy bar versus if you ate something that was rotten. So what comes into us impacts us. And also there's things that go out of us, right? There's things like our breath, our sweat, When we breathe, that's how fat actually comes out of the body, right?
I taught you that.
I know, you did tell me that. We go to the toilet. So you can start to see that we are not a self-contained thing. There's stuff in our environment coming into us and stuff coming out of us. Our body is different today than it was when what we were 5 years ago or when we were 5 years old. And even 5 seconds ago, you could say that our body was different. It's changing all the time.
But it feels like continuity.
It
right?
feels like continuity
not.
because the awareness, which is what we essentially are, our awareness remains the same, which is why we still feel like we're the same self as we were when we were looking in the mirror when we were 5 years old, right?
Yes.
But our body is a process which is changing all the time. Like the flame, it's a pattern of energy that is forming and reforming in every moment.
Okay, so how is this tying into reinventing ourselves?
Well, just like the flame is flaming,
Yes.
we are not a self. It's more accurate to say that we are selfing from moment to moment. We are more of a happening than a self-contained thing. We've spoken about how our body is a process that's changing. But if you think about it, our thoughts are changing all the time as well. Our emotions are changing all the time. Sometimes it feels like certain emotions can linger, but just like a weather pattern, they come and go. Everything is changing about us. And so it's more accurate to really understand that the true nature of what we are is a pattern that is forming and reforming in every moment. So, for example, if you had to see right now a beautiful sunset, that would kind of come into you, that moment would come into you, and you would then emerge. In other words, you would self in a certain way that you would feel certain emotions, you would have certain thoughts, and so on. If you had to see roadkill, you would emerge in a different way. Mm-hmm. So in other words, we are emerging, or what is more precise is to say that we are co-emerging in every single moment with the moment that's happening around us. And so that is part of our selfing. We are selfing. We are appearing in every single moment, almost brand new. Mm-hmm. So once we actually start to understand this, and not just conceptually, but even just from a felt sense, to start to really comprehend just how we're changing all the time, then we realize that every single moment we can self in a totally new way.
Which I love. And I think that is what we're getting at here, right? We do not have to be the same person we were 5 minutes ago. We do not have to use all the labels and concepts that we've had that actually we'd like to leave behind or that no longer serve us, or we don't have to go from there. We can go from somewhere brand new. And I think just bringing this back into the fitness and the fat loss context, I think a lot of us women have experienced so many challenges when it comes to losing weight, when it comes to getting lean, and we have all of these ideas. I'm not a disciplined person. I'm not a fit person. I'm not a this. And so unfortunately, this leads us to not actually doing the things that we want to do, because like you and I were chatting about, if you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're probably right. And these concepts of ourselves is what's holding us back from stepping out and doing these things that maybe we haven't done it for the past 33 years, but that's not to say that I can't do it now.
Exactly. And maybe you tried something in the past and you couldn't do it. And so maybe it's accurate to say that you couldn't do it back then. So maybe that label of like, I couldn't do it back then, I wasn't good at sports then, that might be accurate. But that's not who you are right now. In fact, you're changing in every single moment. So one way to think about this in terms of labels, I can find a time in my life where all of these labels were correct at the time, where I was generous and where I was stingy, where I was kind and when I was an asshole, when I was a leader and when I was a follower, when I was supportive and when I was unsupportive. I have emerged as all those things throughout my life, and therefore at the time that they happened, all of those were true, and yet none of those labels are definitively true. They were just true in that moment that I emerged in that way. So we start to release ourselves as we have this understanding from any labels that we've put on ourselves, and we start to realize that we can emerge in any moment as totally new. It's not the previous moment that has to impact this moment. In fact, it's the other way around. This moment will become the past.
Right.
So I can actually just emerge new in this moment. In a bad mood, or you've fallen off the wagon and you didn't want to eat that thing and you did. You had this brand new habit that you wanted to do and for some reason you skipped doing it. Whatever the case may be, don't allow that to have kind of an inertia that causes you to feel away now. Change how you feel right now.
Yeah, you can reemerge in every single moment. And I think this is coming back to the practicality of this. To think, firstly, when we are sitting down and thinking about who it is that we want to be going into the new year and how it is that we want to show up every single day, we actually need to leave all of the labels that are no longer serving us. And we now, in day-to-day life, we need to start checking ourselves. What are the thoughts that come up that are actually limiting? What are the things that all of these false beliefs, old labels, old patterns that actually we can leave behind, and we don't have to follow through on those same actions. We can be completely different. Yeah.
It's not about, by the way, it's not about rejecting or saying like, oh, I'm not that, whatever that label was. Because we can acknowledge that there have been times where we have emerged as not quite our highest aspirational self. And there would have been certain circumstances and things that would have caused you to co-emerge that way at that time.
Right.
And like we always say, if you could have been different or if you could have done something different, you would have.
Right.
But because we are the sum of all of our lived experiences up until this very moment, and because every moment that unfolds in front of us is the sum of everything that's made it exactly what it is since the beginning of time, there are a lot of forces and factors at play that cause the situation to be a certain way and for us to co-emerge in that situation as a certain type of self in that time. So whatever labels you've put on yourself, it's not even like you have to now think to yourself, oh no, I'm not that, or I wasn't that way. Like maybe you were. Cool. Accept that. But you're giving yourself permission. You're liberating yourself from it, understanding that you can just you can emerge, you can self in this moment completely differently.
So wrapping it up now, going into building your leanest body ever and living your best life in the process, how do we apply this concept of selfing to that when we know we want to make healthier choices? We know that we want to perhaps be more disciplined in some way. Perhaps we want to try something new. Perhaps we want to live a lifestyle that looks very different to the one that we're living now. How do you think moment to moment we could use this concept to help us to day by day reinvent ourselves?
Well, earlier on today, you said a line to me, which is, if you think you can.
Yeah, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right.
Exactly. And what that points to is that there's a belief at play here, right? If you believe you can or you believe you can't, we could say it that way as well, right? So the best way to make this practical is to just realize that we're changing a belief here. Now, beliefs aren't like hips, like hip surgery, out with the old and in with the new. We want to nurture a new belief. In this case, it's the belief that I'm not fixed, I'm not carved in stone as any specific type, that I can co-emerge, or that I can self in a brand new way in every single moment. And so if there ever is a moment where you're feeling contracted or small or limited, where you're feeling like, you're berating yourself, you're labeling yourself, anything that's got that kind of feeling tone to it, is just to take a moment and just to become aware of your thoughts. Sometimes we think that we are our thoughts. We get caught up by our thoughts. But when we take a step back or sink back into our mind and just observe our thoughts, then we realize that actually our thoughts are changing all the time. The thoughts that you're having right now listening to this is different to the thoughts you had 10 seconds ago. As a thought comes up, sometimes we cling to it and maybe we'll try, but then they're gone. Thoughts are coming and going the whole time.
I think just to bring this back to fat loss, I always joke with you as to how many times a day your feeling can change toward yourself. So this morning I wake up, I feel great, like, I'm looking fantastic. Like one meal in, you're like, damn, like my stomach's actually like not so great, it's feeling a bit fat today. And then later on you check yourself in the mirror, you're like, oh, I've got some gains happening. And so our thoughts are not that reliable.
Exactly. And once we actually start paying attention to that, then we start to realize that we're a process. We're selfing all the time, emerging differently. Thoughts are coming and going. Feelings are coming and going. And of course, like we mentioned, even our bodies are changing in every single moment in ways that perhaps we're not even consciously perceiving. Just that reminder that we are more of a happening, that we are selfing in every moment, can give you that cue to catalyze you, giving yourself permission to just let everything go and just self differently in this moment.
I really hope that this interesting concept of selfing has stuck with you and you are going to re-emerge in 2024 from a beautiful, clean slate, removing the labels, removing the history, removing the ideas that are not serving you, and you're able to start completely fresh and be someone that you would never imagine even possible. And thank you, babe, for sharing that really interesting concept. I know that it is going to serve all of the lovely lean girls as they excitingly plan who they want to be in 2024.
Yeah, and just to echo something that we said earlier, it all comes down to if you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. Yes. And it's not just a 2024 thing. We're selfing in every single moment, even this one now.
We start.
And now. And now.
And now. So that wraps up today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. I want to tease our next one because we are coming in with the new year energy. And in our next episode, we are going to be talking all things goal setting. And when I say those words, it might have a wave of anxiety, either because you have so many goals that you don't even know if you're Arthur or Martha, or you're like, you know what, I'm not even setting goals this year because they never happen. We are going to show you a brand new way to set goals that you are actually going to achieve. Are you excited?
I'm super amped.
So thanks for tuning in. Please don't forget to give myself at The Lean Girl a follow. If you are looking for some help and guidance on your Lean Girl journey, head on to my Instagram page, check out the website. I have incredible tools that are going to help you take the guesswork out of it and help you to get lean while living your best life ever. And of course, please give Gilan a follow too. He does some incredible content that is going to help you to have deep happiness while being a peak performer, which I know all of you girls are. So go and check Gilan out too. And don't forget to share this episode with someone who you think needs to hear it. And we will catch you back next week on the Lean Girl Fitcast.